Welcome to The Burn Beyond Firestop. I'm your host, John Zalepka. Our show is focused on life safety and code compliance in the built environment, which puts me on a mission to find the most interesting people in that space and get their unique perspectives. Our hope is that our listening audience walks away with an understanding of how our guests and their businesses also contribute to the promotion of life safety of whatever is being built. Our show is brought to you by Specified Technologies, also known as STI Firestop. And since 1990, STI has been a leading global provider of innovative fire protection that helps stop the spread of smoke, fire, and hot gases. And our guest today knows a thing or two about fire prevention. He's an independent consultant and chief fire strategist specializing in innovative fire protection solutions for emerging technologies. And I'm sure he'll tell us all about that. He has more than 15 years of experience in fire protection, life safety, and code compliance. And with that, Aaron Johnson, welcome to The Burn.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I'm glad we could finally connect. And I'm a fan of your show. So thanks for having me on.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that. And as you know, if you're a fan of the show, I always like to start on a personal note rather than jumping into the whole business of things. And that's why I want to take you back all the way to Hobe Sound Bible College. I see for a time there you were studying ministerial studies. And does that mean that you were originally considering a career as a pastor?
Yeah. So that was kind of the family business. So my dad was a preacher and I felt like that's what I should do. And I actually preached my first sermon in front of the whole church when I was in 6th grade. So I've been speaking in front of people ever since then. But yeah, that was my original path. And I did that I went to school for that for a year and a half, then decided I figured I could always do that. I could always share the word or be involved in church work. But I also wanted something that could make me a little bit of money.
Understandable. So I'm guessing you're still active in the church. As you know, I creep around on people's LinkedIn profiles and I saw that you've done some coaching actually with Upward Sports, and I had to check them out also. Love Google. And it says that their mission is to promote the discovery of Jesus through sports. And I just thought that was a pretty awesome mission. And if you don't mind, just tell me a little bit about that organization, maybe your involvement.
Yeah. So since my dad was a preacher, I've always been involved in the church operations and functions and volunteering. If something needed to be done, my dad was quick to sign me up to do it. So I've kind of served in all different areas, especially with youth ministry and kids. So when when I met my wife, she had a 5-year-old. And so I got involved with Upwards through his school. He was playing basketball, so I started coaching and doing that. And it's a really good program. It teaches, kids have character traits, right? Not just about winning, but it's also about having a good attitude and how to treat people with respect and with fairness. And then we also, obviously, we would do a little devotional and talk about God and the Bible, those kind of things. So it's a really good program. And then he kind of aged out of that program. So I've been out of that maybe for a couple of years now from the coaching. But I've served there. And currently I serve with an organization called Our Community Table. And what we do is we feed about 1,500 people every Saturday in our community. So we have these big smokers and it's a lot of fun. We smoke we have 5 or 6 different recipes we use, and then we go out and distribute the food. So that's really my main primary serving opportunity that I'm involved with now, but always looking for serving opportunities and always being involved.
Awesome. I mean, that's incredible, especially giving back, volunteering. And I suppose it's only natural that one of your first jobs was being an EMT to help people and serve them on a daily basis. Is that what sort of led you into that, or what made you become an EMT in the first place?
Yeah. So my ultimate goal was to get into the fire service and work in the fire department. And that was the first step, was you had to become an EMT. So I kind of just started just because of that reason. But I went to school for that and did that job for a couple of years and enjoyed that. Then I took the next step to get into the fire service.
All right. And the fire service, I mean, was that transition into firefighting and specifically the aircraft rescue firefighting? Did you always know that you were kind of headed towards the aircraft scene, or was it just, how'd you wind up there, I guess?
So I just started I went to fire school, didn't really know anything about it. And then in school, in the academy, they tell you about all the different niches and all the different areas that the fire service is active in and what it does. And so from that time, I learned about aircraft rescue firefighting or crash rescue, and I learned about fire prevention. So I knew from the academy that I wanted to be involved in both of those areas and both those aspects of the fire service. And so when I came out of school, and in the state of Florida where I live, you have to pay your own way through EMT, you pay your own way through fire school, then you have to apply to jobs. In some other states, it's different, where they'll hire you first and put you through school. But in Florida, it's all on you, and then you go apply to get a job. So it took about a year and a half to get hired anywhere. I applied at all different departments, and the first department that did hire me was an aircraft rescue department in South Florida. I worked for Sikorsky Aircraft there, that builds the Black Hawk helicopter. If you've ever seen Black Hawk Down, or if you've ever seen Mr. Deeds, I like Mr. Deeds when he's singing in the airplane, Major Tone, and he's in that helicopter that's a 92, and that's also a Sikorsky helicopter. So that was my first department to go to work for. So I did that, and while I was doing that, I got certified and took the training I needed to do to get into fire prevention, to become a fire inspector. And then so I left Sikorsky to become a municipal fire inspector for a local municipality where I live. I did that for 5 years, and then my chief at Sikorsky called me back and said, "Hey, we're looking to start a structured fire prevention program. I want you to come back and be our fire marshal and run that program." So I did that for 8 years.
So that about that same time you started a consulting practice as well, or was that part of that? And was that initially consulting on aircraft rescue, or was it more commercial construction, I guess, with the municipal fire inspector experience that you had there?
Yeah, so when I was working as a municipal fire inspector, I also started blogging. Blogging was kind of new at the time, but I would be doing a plan review or out on inspection. I would have a question. I'd go and try to find it, look up an answer. And I got to thinking that if I had this question, I'm sure there's somebody else probably had the same question too. So I just said, "Oh, I'll start a little blog and I'll put this out there." So I ran that blog for 10, 11 years. But from that, I got contacted by some people to do some consulting with them. The consulting primarily was related to fire code compliance in the built environment, fire stopping, which you're familiar with, of course. And so I got started that way. So I did that on the side that was like my first job into it. And I continued doing that for 10 years until I was able to transition to that full time.
Awesome. So I guess having that experience in both aviation and commercial construction, what are some of the big differences that you see in terms of fire prevention, I guess, or one or two of the biggest differences?
Well, I actually wrote an article or a LinkedIn post a few weeks ago.
We'll have to get a link in the show notes then. Send it over to me. We'll put it in there.
And it's all about training. I think the biggest difference might not be in the materials and methods, but it's in the fire prevention approaches that you take, right? So if I become a certified fire inspector for a municipality, there's a whole host of things that I have to look for and be aware of, right? I could be anywhere from a residential to a hospital to a school, to also having responsibilities for an airport or a hangar or something like that. But in aviation, when you're specific to the aviation market, they have their own concerns, their own risks that you might not see in the community. So my article I wrote about, which I was getting to, was about, is it time for specialized training for people that are in that aviation field? Because of that, right? There's different risks, different hazards that have to be addressed and looked at, and you're in different codes mostly. You may never have to, as a municipal inspector, you may never have to look at 415 or 409 or the guide for aircraft rescue firefighting. You don't have to look at any of those maybe. So when you get into aviation, those are all the codes that you're in that you might not be used to. So I think that is the biggest challenge, is just the different level of training that you might have to have and the different things you need to know specific to aviation and aircraft.
I mean, you clearly have a passion for the aviation thing. I mean, it looks like that you've been involved in multiple organizations and getting involved on committees and the ICC and the NFPA and the ARF working group and things like that. Can you talk about some of your committee work and why do you stay involved?
So I like to say, if you want to change the world, you might have to change a code or standard first. And I've always preached that wherever I've worked, whatever I've done, I've always preached being involved in the codes and standards process, because that's where everything happens. If you're a firefighter and you're pulling hose to a fire, you're doing that based on what somebody else already said, this is how we should do that, right? You're following someone else's guidance on how to do that. If you're an inspector and you're enforcing one of those codes, well, you're enforcing what somebody else wrote and came up with. And so it's a bigger deal to be involved in that and making that code, writing that requirement. you get to lay that out, what's right for your community. Well, you get to have a voice and put that in to say, hey, this doesn't work for us, and here's what does work for us. So I always preach being involved in the codes and standards process. The other part to that is it gives you a whole different perspective. We can take classes, you can get certified, you can take all kinds of things, but you go to seminars. But when you sit on those technical committees and you get to actually see, first of all, you're sitting with people that have years of experience in this industry, and you get to get their knowledge. You get to also understand how they come up with these codes and standards, where they come from. You understand the background, the intent, the context. It gives you a whole different perspective and view. And when you're out enforcing that, you can actually explain that and say, well, here's why we do this, and here's where this came from, and here's how it is. So I've always been involved in that, and I try to stay involved in those codes and standards and technical committees.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of the value add, especially in the consulting world, is to not only say what that code is or that standard is, but also what the thinking behind it was and maybe why it came to be. Is there one piece of code or maybe a particular standard that you've helped develop that stands out in your mind as something that you're proud of, or maybe something that was critically needed that you had a hand in, getting past or getting through?
Well, one of the things I'm most excited about is actually happening right now with NFPA 418, which is a standard for heliports. So I am sitting on a task group for that. It's called the Vertiports Task Group. So what we're seeing is it's called Urban Air Mobility, UAM, and that's an eVTOL, which is electric vertical takeoff and lift aircraft. So there's several hundred manufacturers that are making electric powered aircraft for what we call urban air mobility, which is basically an air taxi, kind of like the Jetsons, right? You get to fly everywhere. You pull up your phone, you pull up an app, and you'll have an aircraft land by your house, and you just jump on it. It takes you where you want it to go. That's the future of it. But we're headed there now. We already have aircraft. We have people that are starting to build infrastructure for that. And so a vertiport is where these type of aircraft are going to land. So I'm part of that task group that gets to write the fire protection standards and fire protection requirements for these. So I'm excited about that, and I've been involved in that. And I've been heavily involved in that, be able to make those decisions and sit with those experts in the room in this industry and get to learn from them. So that's been exciting.
That's awesome. And I love that we got to plug the Jetsons in there too. There's so many innovations that the Jetsons were so far ahead of their time, but we could probably have a whole podcast show on just that. But you're also, I mean, you mentioned blogging, but you're also the author of many books, articles, white papers, resources. How many books have you published at this point?
I've got 6 fire service related books and a couple other ones that are unrelated, but 6 so far. My last one just came out a couple weeks ago. It's called Being Chief, Leadership Principles for the ARF Professional. So there's lots of books out there on the fire service management and leadership in general, but there's no books or materials out there directly directed toward the aircraft rescue firefighting profession and how to lead those departments with their challenges. And so what I did to write that book is I interviewed almost 40 different chiefs and leaders in the aircraft rescue firefighting industry. And so I was able to take their replies and their wisdom and their insights and kind of compiled them into this book.
Well, that's awesome. And we can find all of your books on your website. Is that correct? Let's plug your website right now, shall we?
Yeah, it's at aaronj.org.
aaronj.org. Awesome. Yeah. And it was actually a certain LinkedIn post that caught my eye that made me reach out to you. I know we had talked about doing this show quite a while back, but it was that big I quit thing. And, I definitely say that it made me stop scrolling. And, in full disclosure, this is actually the second time that we're recording this. I wasn't going to say anything, but I'm bringing it up because we do it nice because we do it twice. But, at the time I asked you what type of reaction were you getting from people, because that was pretty much a fresh post. But I guess what type of reaction did you get, and how's it been going so far?
Yeah, it's been going good. I got a good reaction. I got a lot of people read that post and viewed it. And like I said, I love the fire service. It's been great for me and my family, but that consulting kind of went from my side gig to my full-time thing. I had people come into me, and the work was there, and people wanted me to help them out, and that's what I wanted to do. So, but it's been good. The reaction's been good. I think I was most surprised pleasantly about the support of the industry. It's not cutthroat. It's not like other consultants were out there. We're not trying to steal each other's stuff or put each other down. Other consultants in the space reached out, said, hey, here's some advice. What do you need? Let me know. How can I help you? So
That's awesome. So I guess now full-time consulting, what's your focus? I mean, is it going to be aviation? What's your sweet spot? Who's your ideal client? If I was your ideal client, what would you say to them right now?
So
Not
I
to put you on the
focus.
spot or anything.
I'd say I focus on innovative fire protection technology, fire protection solutions for emerging technologies, right? And so what I mean by that is, for example, the eVTOL, the UAM space, right? Well, that's something that needs fire protection. That's an emerging technology. It's going to need fire protection solutions. So that's one part of it. The other part would be, let's say you have a traditional fire protection product, but you're going to use it in an innovative way. So you might have the best idea, the best fire protection method out there, but if it's not in the codes or standards or accepted, then you're not going to be able to implement it. So I help people to be able to do that, whether that's through writing and drafting and creating a code and standard, whether it's raising awareness to the solution that you have, or whether it's working with an AHJ or an architect, or even having to go through the performance-based design process. So I kind of help people navigate that, so that their solution can be implemented.
I mean, I love how you focus not only on, the benefits and the value that you bring to the people that are, that you're helping consulting, but also the industry as a whole, because another one of your recent LinkedIn posts about the aviation fire prevention credentialing program. I know that in the fire stopping world, we don't have that universally recognized contractor program or things like that. And, I wonder, how's the support for that going, or is it still a little bit it's in infancy?
Yeah, so I wrote that post just to kind of see if it was just my own crazy idea or if other people were on the same page, because I have a lot of crazy ideas. So I like to put them out there, see if it's just me, if there's other crazy people. But it turned out there's a lot of people that agreed with that said, yeah, it is time for that industry-wide credentialing type of process. So I that part of that post was a draft outline of what that program could look like. So I've gotten some feedback on that, and that's a good idea. So now it's like, where do we go from here, right? And so that's probably what I'll think through in 2022, is just thinking through putting that program together and what does that look like.
So that's great. I mean, you obviously see a lot of value in posting on platforms like LinkedIn. You see a lot of people that are self-serving and promoting themselves, but I mean, you're clearly adding value and doing research to see what is the industry wants. So, I mean, that's awesome. I commend you for that. Is there anything else that you want to promote to inform us about your services, new products, training, any live presentations that you're giving? I mean, I love that we're finally getting back out there.
No, first of all, I wanted to say thank you for what you do. I mean, you always put out great information. You have great guests. So thank you for all that you're doing. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to 2022 and getting back out into some conferences and things like that. So I've, the only thing I've confirmed for speaking is at the NAFED conferences, which is the National Association for Fire Equipment Distributors. So those are in March, April, and May. I'll be speaking at all of those, and I'll be speaking on affecting change through codes and standards. So something I'm passionate about and get to share. So I'll be doing that. No, I've just, I'm here. I'm available to help people, whatever you need. If anyone can feel free to reach out to me. I'm just here to help. That's what I kind of got into the industry, and that's what I'm still carrying with me.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time, Aaron. It was great getting to know you again. And I want to thank everyone else out there taking the time to listen. We know that there's a lot of podcasts, and you've chosen to listen to ours, so we appreciate it. And make sure to check out the show notes. We'll get some of those links in there for you about some of the things that we talked about today. And finally, if you enjoyed this episode or the show in general, we'd love some support. So do whatever you do, leave a rating, write a review, share it on social media. Any help we greatly appreciate. And to catch the latest and greatest from STI, please check out our website at www.stifirestop.com. And until next time, this is The Burn.